105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide at country.am. All right, normally on this on Fridays we have Sheriff Derek Palmer with us, but he is laying out today. And no, he's not laying out. He's occupied with other interests, but we are pleased to have Mark Thigpen joining us here on the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Tim. It's good to be here.
It's good to have you back. I always enjoy our chats.
Yes. As we've talked earlier, you and I have the similar gift of conversation.
Gift of gab? Am I hearing something weird? Are you hearing something in your headphones? Oh, that's your... Okay.
That's one of the deputies looking for me.
He's over here. All right. I was wondering, I heard something sound like a duck call, and that was his phone vibrating. I'm used to the way mine sounds. But yeah, we're going to be talking about a variety of topics, and Mark is just a wealth of knowledge. Very easy to talk to. If you know Mark, you know he's pretty easy to talk to. How are things going at the sheriff's office?
Very busy.
Very busy.
Yes, as I tell people, there's no lack of job security or work at the sheriff's office.
And it's getting busier every day, isn't it?
Every day. It certainly is. We like to think that we're making progress in some areas, but there's some things that are just overwhelming us. Currently we are just inundated with issues related to drugs. That's no new issue to our area, but recently we've just had an explosion of incidents involving heroin, and that seems to be taking our county by storm.
Heroin, a big problem in our area right now. And sometimes these drug problems kind of disappear for a while, and come back. Are we on a comeback period for heroin?
We are on a comeback period, and it's a couple of different reasons. As I spend some time with our folks in the narcotics unit and have an opportunity to sit in or even conduct some interviews with some of the folks that are arrested, they're telling us that part of the comeback is related to the price of heroin. It's become extremely cheap, makes it easy to afford and to use, versus prescription pills, which the majority of our people that are using heroin have a prescription pill addiction, or did have. They're looking for a substitute for that opiate-based product that they found in hydrocodone, oxycontins, or other types of major painkillers, morphine, those types of things. The other thing that they have told us is that last year, when we had the joint operation with Union County, Georgia, and the DEA that resulted in the arrest with some folks associated with Union General, that they, as prescription pill abusers, found it became much more difficult to obtain the prescription pills, that the doctors seemed to be paying more attention to how many they were prescribing, who they were prescribing to, and so it kind of put a halt to the free flow of the prescription pills. Right. So that drove them to a need to look for an alternative, and thus we have a comeback in heroin.
All right. I don't want to advertise or promote heroin, but I do like to understand what attracts people to heroin? Why are they taking it? What effects are they feeling when they do that?
It's best, I guess, described as a numbing feeling. And as I had the opportunity to talk to a young gentleman last week, as a matter of fact, his description was that because of his addiction to it, that without it, they physically become sick. They become nauseous, body aches, almost like a super duper case of the flu, that they even stay in bed because they're that sick.
Oh, wow.
And their body has developed such a need for an opiate-based drug, whether it's in a pill or in the form of heroin, that they become incapacitated and can't function.
So once it gets its hook into a person, it's hard to stop without
That's correct.
Without going through those withdrawals.
That's correct. And when they hit those withdrawals, obviously they're very severe to them. We see those quite often with folks that we have that have been sentenced to jail or maybe have been arrested and have a bond that they can't make, and they don't have access to that. And our medical staff actually has what they call a cocktail of non-narcotics that they give them to help them ease over that period of time.
I know with drugs like methamphetamine, it's pretty easy to look at someone and say, it looks like they may be doing meth. Is heroin the same way? Are there physical signs that someone can identify?
Eventually, you start seeing some of the same signs that you see with methamphetamine. Of course, one thing that is very easy to identify with most of our heroin and pill addicts is they're shooting them by needles. So you'll see track marks, or we're seeing a lot of people that have been shooting up for such a long period of time that they're developing cellulitis in their arms where they've gotten infections, developed serious scar tissue, and will actually have deformities in their skin from shooting up. And then, of course, you start seeing some of the same symptoms. They're not eating well, so they lose weight. They may go from agitated to, just wiped out appearing. So it's the big difference between those addictions and the methamphetamine addiction is the meth addicts are on that speed that keeps them up for days and days at a time, and they're just go, 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 go like the Energizer Bunny.
Right.
The heroin doesn't create that same type of high, but it does cause them to go into a state that it's pretty obvious that they're impaired under some type of substance.
You were talking about the needle track marks and things like that. I remember when I was in college, which was a long, long time ago, I used to donate blood plasma at one of the clinics there, and they used huge needles that had this slanted edge, and they would, and I was so afraid because I donated blood plasma twice a week, and that needle went into there, and I was so afraid that people would think I was shooting up from
as opposed to doing something of good.
Yes, I guess that kind of helped me get over my fear of needles because I was afraid of needles before that. But it was not a fun thing. But
no.
A lot of people need the blood plasma.
When talking about needles, that's something that has reached an epidemic in our community as well. Is the abandonment of these needles. Even had Commissioner Roy Dickey over the facilities for the county contacted me last week. He's looking for protective gloves for his personnel because they're finding so many abandoned needles in the bathrooms of the courthouse, in the trash cans, outside on the grounds, outside the grounds some of their other facilities. So he was interested in trying to find some what we call needle stick proof gloves for his people that are having to go up and pick up and collect this stuff. And it's every week that we're hearing a business owner saying, I'm finding needles in my trash cans, I'm finding needles in my parking lot. Even have had a couple of the dollar stores that have reported they found them on the shelves inside the stores. We've actually had 2 incidents this year of deputies being poked by needles while they were searching cars and or suspects. So it's a very dangerous situation, for those guys. Once they're stuck, and they have to, if we can obtain the person that had the needles, and of course you don't necessarily know who all has shared that needle,
right?
But we have some rules and regulations, some laws that assist us in forcing them to go take a blood test.
Yeah, there's a huge health concern there.
It puts those guys on a regimen of having to take antibiotics and being tested on a regular basis, because many of the diseases that are passed through these dirty needles don't show up for years. So it's a very dangerous and serious situation. In fact, that's one of the first things that the deputies ask now when they start to search a person or a car is, do you have anything on you that's going to stick me, poke me, or be of danger to me? And not to say that they're not as concerned about guns or knives or those things, but a open, uncapped needle in a pocket or stuck down in a pair of socks is as dangerous and deadly to them as a cocked gun.
Wow. Hadn't really thought about that, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And
we've ordered the stick-proof gloves for searching. They call them frisk gloves for all of our personnel, just to try to help avoid that. Of course, you get into some heat of the moment situations where you've got to go hands on with somebody real quick before you've had time to put those gloves on, and you still are at risk.
Wow. So, as a caution to the general public out there, if you're walking in the park or a store, be looking to make sure that you don't touch anything that may be abandoned by someone, such as a needle.
That's correct. And call, on a regular basis. Anybody that listens to the scanner and listens to the dispatch, they'll hear Murphy Andrews, the sheriff's office, being dispatched to various locations for found. On the radio, it's Signal 2, which is our code for drugs or drug paraphernalia, and we're going and collecting that stuff and disposing of it for the public because it is so dangerous.
And for those folks that are listening that may have an addiction problem with needles, what is the best way to dispose of those needles to be considerate to other people?
Well, would be to really to try to get them to either the health department, the hospital, or somebody that has the proper facilities to dispose of them.
I think they sell those Sharps containers.
You can get them at Ingles, or Walmart, at Walgreens, those types of places. That's actually what we use. All of our deputies carry a Sharps container in their car to dispose of those needles, and then through our medical department, they're disposed as hazardous medical waste through the proper channels.
Do you think a lot of people don't realize the problem that just leaving a needle out in public causes, or they just don't care?
I think it's a combination of don't think about it and don't care. And quite honestly, part of it is also after they've shot up, they've gotten high, there's multiple people around, they just forget.
Right.
And we see that on occasions when we're dealing with these people out in the public, that they'll say, and there's actually a statute, North Carolina law, that says if you tell us in advance that you have this needle or that needle, that we won't charge you for possession of drug paraphernalia. Mm-hmm. And they'll provide, say, I have one in my pocket or one in my waistband or whatever, and then you search them and you find another one somewhere else, or one in their pocketbook or their back pocket, and they look at you with this deer in the headlight look. I honestly forgot I had that one. Mm-hmm. And I think part of it's their state of mind, that they truly don't remember what they had, when they had it, or where they had it.
So it's best if people are just completely honest about everything that they have.
Honesty's the best policy.
Yes, very good.
Another thing, Tim, that concerns us with this heroin problem is the heroin that we're seeing is not pure heroin. It's being mixed with a variety of drugs. One of the main drugs that it's being mixed with is fentanyl, which is a super potent painkiller. It's hundreds of times more potent than morphine. And it is so potent that we have received directives from the DEA, from the SBI lab, to never touch any suspected heroin items without proper protection.
Wow.
It will absorb into your skin, and there's documented cases across the country of officers overdosing on fentanyl just by picking up a plastic baggie that had heroin in it.
Wow.
And I'm not sure how familiar you are with heroin, but it comes in multiple forms. It can be from a powderish form all the way up to what we call black tar heroin. And heroin comes in many colors. We see it in what we call gravel gray. Some of the streets actually call it concrete heroin because it looks like chunks or concrete dust. You see it in a brownish color. You see it in a white color. You see it in this black tar sticky color. And this, particularly the powder heroin, there's been incidents where it was being processed. Officers opened up the package and it became airborne, and they inhaled it and overdosed. There's actually reported instances of officers being put in intensive care because it is so potent. So even as far as the public seeing a plastic baggie or something, don't pick it up and mess with it. Call us, let us come collect it, dispose of it properly. We're actually in our what we call the processing room, where we process our evidence and our drugs. We are we're asking our officers to wear a dust mask, if you will,
Right.
along with their protective rubber gloves, just to protect them, because this stuff, until it's actually tested by a lab, we don't know what's in it.
Is the heroin, is that something that's being produced locally or being shipped in from other areas?
It's being shipped in, and we've been fortunate enough to be on track with starting to identify some areas where we know the majority of our supply is coming from. The majority of our heroin is coming out of Georgia, which is being shipped in from foreign countries. We're actively working with the DEA, the GBI, the FBI, Atlanta Police Department, some other agencies to work on a couple of areas that we know specifically where our heroin problem is coming from.
And this is just a question because of my ignorance, but what kind of facility would need to be in place to produce something like heroin? Is that something out of a person's home or a factory type thing?
Yeah, heroin typically is not something that's produced in a home. Most often it's going to come out of Mexico, China, or some very foreign country where they take the poppy seeds, process them. It's definitely not like meth where you can make it at home. It's not a homegrown type of drug. It's being made somewhere else in bulk and shipped in.
Poppy seeds, that's the source?
That's the source of heroin.
And those grow probably south of where we live?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm learning things.
You know, actually, the poppies that you see the DOT plant in the highways for beauty have actually been sterilized so that the seeds have no potency to them. There's no opiate effects to them, so you can't collect those and use those. There's no poppies sold in the United States that have the capability of producing heroin, so it all has to come from foreign sources.
All right. A couple of months ago, Fannin County Sheriff's Office arrested, I think, a Mineral Bluff resident for, I think it was ricin. Are you familiar with that? Can you kind of educate our listeners what that might be?
Well, I'm not real well versed on ricin. Ricin is a powdered form. If you remember about 10, 15 years ago, there was a big push of using ricin in terrorist attacks. It's an airborne, typically dispersed airborne, put into either ventilation systems, or a lot of it was coming to politicians in the mail. It's a powder that looks like basically like talcum powder.
It's kind of a same principle as anthrax.
Correct. It's right along that same line and dispersed in the same manner.
And there's basically no reason to possess this unless you're intending harm.
None that I know of.
Okay, because I was wondering, because I think he had a substantial amount and he had gone to the hospital because he thought he had got it on his skin.
That's correct. He had exposed himself and realized that he was potentially killing himself and sought medical treatment.
You know, there's a lot of good people, a lot of great people. We live in a wonderful place, but there is a lot of people that you just have to watch out for. It's not the same small town that people we grew up with.
You and I have had this conversation before. When we were younger, you could leave home and your parents didn't worry about you. They knew you'd be home for supper, and it's just not like that anymore. The people down the road don't know who you are, who your kids are. And you know, I got called out more than once by my neighbors for acting a fool, you know, and I knew to respect them and treat them just like I did my parents, because they were going to call my parents.
Right. It's one of those things we shouldn't live in fear, but we just should always stay aware.
That's correct.
Aware of our surroundings and aware of things that may be happening next to where we live.
Absolutely.
As the sheriff and I have talked in many interviews, that there's not a single community in our county that's not affected by the drug problem.
No, you know, used to, when I first started in law enforcement, there were some specific areas that we identified as troubled drug areas. And now you were exactly right. There's no community, there's no economic status that's not been affected. You know, it's not just the poor, it's not the middle class, it's not the rich, it's across the board. And age, you know, used to, you always associated primarily drug use with certain age brackets, and we're seeing drug abuse by all ages.
And I've mentioned this to the sheriff too, and he agrees that there's a lot of good people that are on drugs. Once they're on drugs, they're not that good person, but once they are able to come down, they're wonderful people again. So it just changes a person's demeanor so much. But a lot of good people make bad choices, and I always hate to be judgmental about someone who has a problem, because without that problem, they're great people.
I always say that it's just by the grace of God that I myself could have been one decision away from being that person that went down that bad road. There's none of us that haven't probably had the opportunity to go down that road and not knowing what that would have done to us, how it would have turned me out. I could have very well been one of those people.
Yeah, any of us could have made a bad decision. And I always like that song it talks about don't point a finger, lend a hand. So if you see someone who is needing help, if you can help them out in any way, just to be able to clean up their lives and be a productive citizen, by all means do that instead of being judgmental. So we're a good community that helps each other out when we can.
That's exactly right. And that's what some of those people need. Some of them need somebody to give them tough love and give them a hand up. Some of them have had that opportunity and they've turned their back on that help because for whatever reason they like the lifestyle they're in. But you always want to offer them that opportunity to come out of that.
If someone is wanting to themselves, they know they're addicted and they want help and they want to stop. And there's a lot of people that are like that they know, but they don't know how to get help. What would you suggest they do?
I would start with contacting either some organizations that we have here within the county. And I'm going to show my age because I always call them Smoky Mountain Mental Health, but they're not Meridian anymore, but whatever the group at Marble. Appalachian is out here on the 4-lane. Then there's the group up at Marble across from Marble Elementary School.
I know what you're talking about. I can't recall the name either.
It keeps changing. And then you've got folks like Christian Love, and any church can help you get you in contact with some type of counseling to get you on that path to recovery.
And United Way runs just a general information line. I think it's 211. You can pick up the phone and call 211, and they can put you in contact with all kinds of resources, not just for drugs, but if anybody in the community has needs, you can just call that number from United Way, and they have a directory for Cherokee County in our area. So if you just call that number and tell them what you need, and they are able to direct you. So 211.
They update that on an annual basis. They contact us and ask us, for any information that we have on new groups or organizations that would go into that directory.
All right. And talking about living in a great community where people help each other out, let's move on. And because I see our time has gotten away from us quickly, about the fundraiser for Joe and Hope Wood.
Yes, as I think most of our community knows, Joe is our lieutenant over the investigative division, and Joe's wife has been battling cancer. She was for several years was cancer free, but has reoccurred, and Joe himself has been the victim of cancer recently. Thankfully, and Joe gives praise to the good Lord above that He is showing that he's cancer free now.
Wonderful.
But there's going to be a fundraiser tomorrow night from 5 to 8 at the family. I think they call it the Family Worship Center or the Family Life Center at Ranger Baptist Church. There's going to be barbecue. Of course, some silent auctions. I think they're going to have maybe a cakewalk, and they're going to raffle off several different items. Joe's poured a lot out into this community for 15 plus years as a deputy, and the community's pouring back into them.
It's wonderful to give to people who give to the community.
That's
it's
exactly
always
right.
Wonderful to give back, and they're such wonderful people. And I've read some of the comments on the Facebook page that they have. I think it's a prayers
Prayers for
page.
Hope. Yeah.
And just some of the comments. People talk about how wonderful these people are.
You know, I have the opportunity to go down and visit with Joe and Hope. Last time Hope was in the hospital, we went and spent some time with them, and Hope has just such a phenomenal outlook. Even though she knows how sick she is, she doesn't complain. She doesn't give any grief. You know, she's happy to have life and her family, and gives credit to the Lord for letting her continue to be a part of this community for as long as He has.
All right. Sounds like there's some activity outside. Hearing the sirens go by. I'm sure that our listeners could hear that on the radio too. Yeah. But just for folks that may not know how the sheriff's office works, tell us about your role there and what you do from day to day.
My official title is Chief Deputy. I'm second in command under the sheriff. So when the sheriff's away, I step up and handle his responsibilities. But primarily, I'm in an administrative role, dealing with personnel, budgets, staffing, overseeing the purchasing of equipment, training, just a wide variety of things. You know, I respond to most all major crime incidents, but more as an advisor as opposed to a hands-on. I'm there to give guidance and assistance to the detectives or deputies as they need it. I used to work primarily a day shift, and now I come out and work more of a mixed shift. So I'm out to see all of our shifts. I see our day shift or night shift. And then I also have communications falls under my purview. And so I oversee our dispatch personnel. Supervisor reports to me, as well as overseeing all of the maintenance and upkeep of all of our communications equipment across the county.
The sheriff speaks highly of you. He's told me several times that he is so thankful to have you there, because he knows that everything is taken care of in his absence, and that you just do a phenomenal job.
Well, I try to do my best. I enjoy my job, enjoy what I've done in this county it keeps getting harder and harder to think it, but I'm well past 30 years of public service. Wow. In this county. And
you started out...
I actually started at 15.
15?
That's correct.
What were you doing at 15?
Volunteer with junior firefighter with the Murphy Volunteer Fire Department.
Wow.
Served 26 years, well, 28. First 2 years didn't get full credit. Served in all capacities there, including chief. Retired after 26 years with them. And then, of course, I've been with Murphy Police Department, the Drug Task Force, the Sheriff's Office, and the Magistrate's Office in the paying capacities.
All right. Well, we certainly appreciate all the good work you've done over the years, and very well known in the area and very well respected. And you just keep up the good work at the Sheriff's Office. And it doesn't look like we're going to get time to talk about budget.
Oh, well.
You love budget so much, so I'm certainly, I know that we'll have to address this next time, I'm guessing.
It is budget time, and we are looking at our budgets, but if we miss talking about that one, that's okay.
Anything you wanted to add before we close out our program for the day?
Just thank the community for the support that they have for the Sheriff's Office. You know, we're not successful without the support of the community, whether it's information, tips, or just, you know, being our eyes and ears. There's not enough of us to go around, and the community is what makes us successful.
Very good. This half hour flies by, doesn't it?
It does.
It seems like we just started talking.
It definitely does not seem like we had enough time.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we hope to do this again real soon.
Yes, sir.
I'm guessing the sheriff will be back next week.
That's correct.
You are always welcome here at our studio, and
thank you, Tim.
We always have a good time.
I enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. It's WKRK 105.5 FM, 1320 AM, cable TV channel 25, and worldwide. We're at country.am.